Hello, all my friends out there in YouTube land. This is Randy the Dancer, and I'm back again. I don't know if you guys have heard recently that Stan Lee had just passed. And he's a big hero of mine, especially with all the comic books that he's created and all the hours it's been collecting them and all of my art that usually is focused around Marvel, which I love. So we really will miss you, Stan Lee. So we decided to take a break from the Build-A-Bears. We will intermittently put the Avenger ones in between doing some more movie reviews, which we told you we were going to do. We kind of wanted to go back to some of the older ones to kind of get back to where they all started. And as we lead into the new ones that come out, which we'll do as they come out fresh. So we decided, as a tribute to Stan Lee, we would do a best of the worst kind of list from 50 down to 1. And the first couple of videos, they're going to be a little bit longer based on how many videos we're going to do. I mean, how many movies are in it. And we're going to just do really short synopsis, nothing too major, because we want to get through this list pretty quickly. But we want to see what your guys' views were on the best Marvel movies of all time and the worst, in your opinions. So please put them down below and like it. But this is my list, and it might seem a little crazy to you. You might have difference of opinions, so I definitely would love the debate on it. And since I've kind of been a guru of movies and have over 800 movies myself and watch all of these movies, just want to share my thoughts on them. And you just can, again, anytime. So we're going to start with the worst ones of the last 30 years in descending order from 50, because there's been a lot of Marvel movies. Not every movie was made this list, because some of them are from TV shows and different things from 30 years ago. And so we just wanted to focus on the ones that mainly made the theaters. So the first one I have, and this is the number 50, I have Fantastic Four number 3. If you guys had seen this one, it came out a few years ago, and it was pretty rank. It was a bad movie. The storyline was totally off. The origin was completely wrong. The abilities were a little tweaked, and the battle scenes were horrific. The end scene was stupid. The way they portrayed Dr. Doom was horrible. The teamwork wasn't the best. And then they took the whole movie to the end to actually see anything good. Personally, I could have liked to have my money back. This movie wasn't that good. It didn't do so well after the first week. Well, it didn't do so well at all, but it kind of tanked and then kind of fade off into oblivion. So that one we ranked at number 50. The next set of movies is actually a pair, number 48 and 49. I think one of the reasons why people don't like these movies is kind of like a lot of movies, is just they don't like the main star. I personally like him in other movies. These ones were okay. I like the first one better than the second one, which tends to happen with these movies. They do pretty decent in the first one. They try to overdo it on the second one, and it falls short of the first. Unfortunately, the first one didn't rank so high among the fans to begin with. I mean, it did okay, but didn't have the numbers that they wanted, and they tried to maintain it, and the second one was actually worse as far as how they did the villain in the end. And that was the Ghost Riders 1 and 2. I mean, I liked these graphics they did in the first one, and the action was pretty decent. But the devil was kind of weak, and the end characters, there's just, and then, I don't know, they kind of fizzled out as far as for most of the fans. Didn't do so well. And they weren't ranked very high in Bad Tomatoes and whatnot. And then at number 47 came The Punisher 2. This is a third one, actually. They've actually done 2 before. And in both of them, they were kind of low budget. I like the second one more than the third one. This one's kind of more graphic, not really something you can take your kids to watch. Most people who said that this was just more for eye candy, the shock factor, wasn't so much for storyline, because we know that Frank Cancel is trying to avenge his wife and his daughter's death. But this right here really just, I guess, put a bad taste in people's mouths because it was just more graphic than it was actual storyline. And I do like the second one better. When we come to the 46th one, it's Elektra. I actually collected Elektra back as a kid. I actually liked her comic. They thought when they did the Deadpool movie, they could do Elektra's spinoff. I thought the movie was okay, but again, a lot of parts were dragged. Kind of took long to get to the main point and people's storyline. Like, how many people actually know about Elektra in the real world versus the comic book world? So who's this character doing this movie on? There was a lot of supporting different superhero characters like Avengers and stuff people want to do movies on that were bigger or more in the limelight than she is. So again, it was kind of a hard sell either way. I thought Jennifer Garner did okay. She was a good portrayal of it. But again, it didn't fare so well in the theaters, didn't so fare so well with the fans, and kind of faded. And so again, we put that at number 46. Unfortunately for The Punisher, again, doesn't fare so well with the fans. The second one was done back in 2004. I thought it was pretty decent. Again, very slow moving. The action was okay. Storyline was a little off from the comic book. But again, kind of dry. And I think most people didn't really feel the character. Honestly, if you want to see The Punisher, the best way to do it is the TV show. The TV show is amazing. I like how they interacted with the other TV shows, with Daredevil in that one, and Iron Fist. Much better production value as far as the TV show goes, and how they intermix it with the Defenders. But the movie qualities, it's just not been ranking so good with the fans and moviegoers alike. Which brings us to number 44, which I'm sure a lot of you are going to give me a bit of comments for, but it's just because for me, it was dry. It kind of dragged. It took a while to get the story moving. I still feel that the character is amazing. It is an obscure character, so they could do a lot more with the movie and the storyline without, throwing people off, since most people don't know about this character. It's been more of a supporting role in most comic books. Had a few runs of his own. I guess recently he's had a big run, but I didn't collect much of him at the time, so I just knew him from his intermittent appearances from Avengers and different extra Marvel comics, and that is Thor. I didn't like the villain into Thor. I thought it was stupid. The battle was lame. I felt like it was anticlimactic. His friends they were okay, but again, not as great as the sequels to this one. I felt like the first one kind of felt flat for me, even though Hemsworth is a perfect Thor character. Loved him to death, but the movie for me is kind of dry. And then in 43 was the Wolverine. The problem I have with the Wolverine is a problem I have with all X-Men movies, even though I love the X-Men movies, is as a standalone character. First of all, Wolverine is like the ultimate. Everyone loves him, and I love him too. And they affectionately call pretty much all the X-Men movies the Wolverine movies, because pretty much it surrounds him. But in this particular movie, he goes back to kind of an origin movie, almost like the Origins movie itself, but not so much. It does talk about how he was created, but as all the fans know, Yuriko, or Lady Deathstrike, as she is known in her mutant name, actually dies in the origin movie for Wolverine as he kills her. And they didn't even know each other in the movie, which was really weird. And so to have a movie based on his origin and how he was created in the lab. So like I said, I mean, his girlfriend was the daughter to the one who helped create him, at least as far as his origin goes. And she is always hated Wolverine for the death of her father. So this movie was really hard for me because it completely destroys the Wolverine storyline. Has absolutely almost nothing to do with Wolverine. It doesn't even really relate to the comic book at all. I mean, it was dark, and his fighting back to this kind of like the lab where he was at, which actually was destroyed when he left, while he was fighting back to whatever. And then the fact that they took the metal atom in the way they did, I mean, the whole thing just reeks of disaster and inaccuracies. And so I didn't like this movie at all. It was ridiculous. I mean, other than it just being Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, which was the best part about the whole movie. But then that brings us to number 42, Fantastic Four number 2. Now, unlike the 50th movie, Fantastic Four number 3, it was actually way better than that movie. I wish they could have continued it. I was looking forward to seeing what they would do with the Fantastic Four movies, but this movie really was hard because when they tried to take on a huge story like Galactus, they had so many missing elements. I mean, it wasn't just Fantastic Four. They started it, but there was other elements involved, other people that came in and helped out. Like, it wasn't just them, because you're talking about a being of such immensity and power and size that he would have devoured the whole world. Fantastic Four wouldn't have been enough on their own merit. And then the Herald, who was Silver Surfer, had 2 other Heralds that he had to compete against to get to even to fight Galactus. So it was really a rough sell. I mean, yeah, there was the storyline between um, Invisible Girl and Silver Surfer was pretty close. I like what they did with the technology. But we never even see Galactus. We never even see what he's really fully capable of. We don't see other heralds. So it just seems like they just try to load too much storyline into one movie and try to see if it'll and throw it against the wall, see if it'll stick. It really fell short for me, and it just wasn't quite the caliber of the first movie. And that's, I think, the reason why it didn't go beyond this. Now, if this is, of course, before the new universe, the new movies, the whole with the Avengers and everything, and people were asking why didn't they add him to the Avengers? That's probably because, well, it'd be too many film studios, too big a project. So for me, it comes in 42 because it was alright, not the greatest. And then in 41 comes The Last Stand. Now this is when we cross over to the mutant world with the X-Men. And as far as that goes, The Last Stand was the roughest for me, even though there's some after that, and there's a lot of inaccuracies throughout the whole X-Men line. The Last Stand was hardest for me because they were trying to focus it again all around Wolverine when he wasn't even really part of the Phoenix saga in that to that extent, and they kill one of the main characters off, Cyclops, who frankly could take down Wolverine. If you guys, I mean, it's being honest. I mean, people think, well, Wolverine's the best, but the reality is, power projection he doesn't have much of. And there's so many more people on that team that could kick his butt, and to have the Cyclops be killed in the first 5 minutes kind of put a bad taste in my mouth through the whole movie. And then Wolverine is the one that takes down the Phoenix. Phoenix took down the Gladiator from the Shi'ar Empire. She can definitely take down Wolverine. I mean, the whole X-Men crew from that time period actually got their butts kicked by the Phoenix. So there's no way in hell he could take her down on his own. So it was ripe with inaccuracies. It kind of destroys the whole timeline. It just made it just progressively got worse from the first movie on to this one. And a lot of people hated how they ended. And that's the whole reason why then in the next movie, they had to do a whole revamp to kind of reset the storyline. And then in number 40, we have Spider-Man 3. This is the one with Tobey Maguire. Now, I originally loved these Spider-Mans, and as I've argued with anyone who's ever talked about the Spider movies, where you talk about the two new guys, the two new sets, is that with this set, Tobey was actually a pretty decent Spider-Man. The movies, I liked them. Everyone loved them at the time because they were the only thing we had. And for accuracy, it was one of the best movies as far as that goes, even though Mary Jane wasn't his high school fling. But it was better than the movies prior to it. It was more accurate than the Spider-Man movies. And they were pretty darn entertaining, even though the technology kind of resembled Power Rangers villains. But at the end of the day, they were decent movies. I liked them very much. Tobey was pretty good. But in this particular movie, they were overreaching. Trying to drag Venom into it, which took a feat because he was actually owned by a different company at the time. So they had to kind of borrow his character. They tried to do two different villains, which was cool in its own right. But the movie kind of ran a little flat for me on this one. It wasn't too bad, but at the end, it's just like, how are they going to top this? Because they're trying to make it more spectacular than the previous two movies. And Tobey Maguire's character actually fell apart on me in this movie. He was trying to act like this tough, showboat when he was infused with the symbiote. But I don't think Tobey Maguire can act very well when it comes to that kind of thing. I think it kind of lost it for me when he tried like a tough guy, but this mean tough guy, just his acting wasn't that great for this particular role. So I think and then of course they all kind of got older and they've taken too long making these movies as far as the contract with Sony, and so they just couldn't continue it on with the old cast that kind of recasted it. And then in 39 we have X-Men Apocalypse. Though I like this for eye candy, it was really fun to watch. There was a lot of excitement in it. I love the way Storm looked in this movie. Psylocke, all the characters were really pretty awesome. Their characters were pretty awesome. Apocalypse was kind of anticlimactic. I mean, he could have been so much better done, but looked decent, but he just looked too small and too weak for what he was trying to portray him as. And but the inaccuracies in this movie were just too much. I mean, it was just crazy. They're trying to, again, take another huge story and shorten it down to a small group of people with a smaller set, and it's just too big a storyline to do with a limited time frame and limited budget. So it fell really flat. It was really weak. They again give too much power to Phoenix, because she's not the one that took him out. It was actually one of his heralds that took him out. And so we didn't really go into how all the X-Men fell into place with this, or the Age of Apocalypse universe, or even with Angel himself, who was the actual one that took Thanos out. I mean, Apocalypse out. So it really, again, not the best movie as far as accuracy and detail. So with Blade 3, that coming in number 38, it's because Blade, when they do these movies, they try to go over the top. They try to make them bigger than the previous ones and make this trilogy. But I felt like they were overreaching again, trying to make this really badass villain that's strong enough to take him down, which is, you know, again, almost like the Underworld movies. They just try to make it really exaggerative, really over the top, and just to kind of give him something that he can go against. Because in the previous movies, he could, like, no one could take him down. He was killing vampires left and right. I mean, it's definitely more gory and graphic and drastic than even the comic book, but they do that again for shock factor and for the video, you know, audience, or movie audience. It was just over the top. It wasn't the greatest storyline, and it was, it just got old after, I think, like 3 movies for me. I mean, they could revamp it, do some new villains, bring us no storyline, but I just felt like it was just ran too long for what it was. I mean, maybe that's just me. You guys put your comments down below. I don't know if you liked Blade 3. For the most part, I liked the trilogy, but that was just my least favorite of those 3 movies. In number 37, we got the first Hulk. I know that the current universe starts with the Iron Man movie back in 2008, and then a few months later we had the Hulk movie. But the reality is, when they did the second Hulk movie, they didn't disavow the first Hulk movie. So it almost seems like we should give Hulk a little bit of props for being actually the first of this particular universe. Because in this Hulk movie, they did a very good job on Hulk. I mean, given the graphics at the time, his abilities were amazing. I liked the action. I liked the battle scenes. I actually liked the Hulk movie as far as all that goes. I thought he was pretty strong. It did go really long. It was dry in parts. It took long to get through his origin, but then again, at the time, given the origin movies at the time, it seemed fair to do it that way. The actor who played the Hulk, he was okay. Wasn't the greatest. Didn't really have the look of the Hulk, even though we do like Jennifer Connelly. Loved her to death. And her portrayal as Betty was pretty cool. But like, the villains in this were pathetic. The whole banter with his father and the electric powers that he contracted, these are just stupid. Nothing really on the comic. Really kind of farce. Again, not accurate. And it really kind of landed flat for most people, because who wants to battle demon dogs, which is just stupid. Hulk's so much better than that. It really kind of makes his character look stupid. Beyond that, the movie was okay. It was pretty decent. And the differences between the 2 movies, like with this one, it more portrayed the TV show with Hulk, where he actually experimented on himself so that they could get past human trials and not have his project shut down. But that was more like the TV. The TV show did not portray the comic very well. They even changed the name of Bruce back in the 70s because they couldn't have Bruce be his name, because that was technically a gay name. But that's the truth of it. That's the actual history. You can go back and look at it. They changed the name to David Banner instead of Bruce Banner, which I'm glad they didn't do it in this one. But again, it really kind of landed flat for most people. It dragged on too long a movie, and the storyline was off, and the villains were kind of pathetic. Which brings us to our final movie of the video. This is number 36, which is Amazing Spider-Man number 2. Again, we go back to our second Spider-Man. I think he was a better Spider-Man than Tobey. Garfield was awesome. Personally, for me, I think he had to look a little bit better. But with this particular movie, again, they're trying to connect it to the first movie. He's trying to get this towards what is inherently going to be the Sinister Six. So it feels like we're trying to rehash the same thing because they were alluded to before. I was still excited to see it come out. Like when they showed Rhino at the end, that was kind of a cool clip. But at the end of the day, it was still not the best Spider-Man movie. And it was hard ranking it that low, but we got so many more that are higher than it. So I'm like, okay, it's kind of hard to put it there. But at the same time, there's everything. With all the caliber that Marvel movies the last few years, it's just, where else are you going to put it? I mean, the other one ranks a lot higher than that. But as far as this one goes, I just feel like it wasn't as better than the Tobey ones, to be honest with you. Even though the graphics were better in this one, and also it doesn't rank anywhere near as high as Homecoming, because Homecoming was just amazing. So in the next video, we'll go from 35 up. We're going to do about 13 to 15 movies per the next two videos, and then the top 10, which I'm excited to get to. And then, as I said before, we're going to intermittently put some Build-A-Bear videos in that are related to the movies we just went through. So like I said, I wore my Doctor Doom hoodie. This is really cool. I like this thing. I forgot to have this over in front of me. Isn't that cool? We figure we do the Fantastic Four. We have the Doctor Doom hoodie and the Punisher, since they were in this list. So we're going to correlate the costume with the movies of the list. And hopefully in the top 10, we'll just do a little more detailed synopsis of those movies, because they're really cool and they deserve our admiration and the credit that they of how great productions they were. So stick around, check them out, and I hope to see you soon. Bye, everybody.